You know, it's a very rare occurrence where the sequel is actually better than the original. Yet we find ourselves always clamoring for more, up to and including books. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back today to talk sequels, because sequels, they never really usually end up living up to what we wanted to see, but we are always anxious to visit those worlds a few more times, right? That's why a sequel is just a thing that just becomes to be expected whenever you have some success. But when I started getting this request, a lot of people were asking me what would be some Stephen King books that I would like to see some sequels to. And I was like, well, the thing that makes Stephen King books so great is that they don't have a lot of sequels. I mean, he did Dr. Sleep, he did The Dark Tower, obviously that's for some series. But I thought, how about just some regular standalone books that I do wish I would have gotten a sequel from. Now, I want a couple of caveats here. One, I'm not doing series, because obviously we got sequels if it's a series. I'm talking about just standalone books here. Also, I'm talking about just the original author. No cash grabs, no admirers, nothing like that. Just the original authors that I would have liked to have seen pick something up and say, I'm going to visit that world again and give the people a little bit more. Now, this list is going to be kind of fast and loose because I literally just wrote it down before I started here. Didn't really make a lot of notes or anything like that, but I don't really do that here, as you can tell right now, the way that I'm just kind of blah, blah. Anyhow, let's kick it off with a classic, guys, here, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Now, a lot of people assumed a few years back when Go Set a Watchman was announced that it was going to be the sequel to Kill a Mockingbird, but it turned out it was actually just the first draft of that story. So kind of like a I don't even want to say like an author's, director's cut or anything like that, because obviously I think the finished product that we got, it's not going to really live up to that, because I think that's one of the greatest classics ever written and one of the greatest coming-of-age stories. So what would I have wanted to see in a sequel? You know, we see these kids, and I would like to see, them kind of grown up now and kind of see how they are as parents, see them teaching their kids some of the lessons they learned from Atticus Finch, some of the lessons they learned with the events of Boo Radley. I'd like to see them kind of bestow those values upon their kids and see the coming-of-age story for a newer generation, which, probably would have been in like the 60s or 70s, something like that. I think it could have been really interesting, kind of stick to that Southern Gothic vibe a little bit. It could have been really, really good, and I trust that Harper Lee would not have done it if she didn't think she had a story to tell, and I believe that's truly why it never did get made. But I would have loved to have visited those characters one more time, especially as much as I have grown to really love kind of. Now, that isn't as much Southern Gothic as it is just Southern, but it does have some kind of things where you think that some things are going. So that's a debate for another time. How about let's get that Stephen King one off the list? I do have a Stephen King one, guys, and you're making me pick just one. I was really, really tempted to pick it. Really tempted. But then I was like, that kind of takes away from their final encounter with Pennywise if you bring him back a third time. So I thought, no, let's not really deal with that. One that I think that had room to do a little bit more was The Stand. I think that The Stand, the way that it ended, okay, we're rebuilding civilization. It's not going to be easy. I'd like to have seen some more of that. Like to have seen maybe this baby, see how what this baby grew up to be. I think a really interesting twist would have been that baby, and I'm not going to tell you the two characters' names, but the baby, if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If that baby had ended up growing up to be another version of the Man in Black, that would have been really, really interesting, I think. Is that too dark for you guys? I mean, hey, I like Stephen King when he is at his darkest. I'm reading You Like It Darker right now, and guys, it's messed up. And I love that. So I love it when Stephen King kind of messes around with things like that. But, when he did do the newer, updated version of The Stand on whatever CBS saw it, whatever that streaming service is they have. I don't know. I don't have that one. But it was some things where he was actually writing a new epilogue to the story. And I thought, I think that there's some mileage left in that story to tell. So I would have really liked to seen, where are those characters, what they made, there's some descendants of those characters. How did humanity go about resolving all the issues they had and getting back on a clean slate and rebuilding the world? How did it go? Because I'm thinking it probably didn't go very nice. But again, that might just be me being a little bit jaded at this point. How about another classic here? One I talked about a while ago is one of my favorite books of all time. This is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. Now, I hear you saying, but Mike, we got Scarlet, but Mike, we got Rhett Butler's People. But viewers, those books don't exist, in my opinion, because they are absolutely atrocious and obviously not written by Margaret Mitchell. Obviously can't be written by Margaret Mitchell now. I wish we would have gotten the conclusion, because the way that story ends, Tomorrow is Another Day, obviously. I think I have written a sequel in my head for decades now. I feel like there's a lot of fan fictions out there. There's some really good fan fictions out there from what I've heard. I've never actually read one of them. But apparently there are lots of things that like the fandom has actually considered almost like canon sequels to the story. But written by Margaret Mitchell would have been a little bit more special, I think, because it's clear when other people picked up these characters, they didn't understand them. They didn't understand what made these characters work. And that's why the story was never very interesting. And I just don't think that you could probably do it in the Reconstruction era. Now, I wouldn't want it to be too far advanced because if I don't have Rhett, I don't have Scarlett. I mean, I don't think I really would care too much about the story. I want to see if these two kids are able to work things out. And I think it could have been done really, really well if it had been done by Margaret Mitchell. But yeah, those sequels they're some of the worst. And I would guarantee, even though I've never read them, that fan fiction is miles better than Scarlet. That's one of the worst books I've ever read. And yes, I did read it, unfortunately. How about some Cormac McCarthy on this list? I think a sequel or a prequel to The Road would have been really, really fun. And the thing is like, I don't know if fun's the right word because The Road is a very depressing story. It will really punch you in the feels many ways. And I think something that makes the charm of that book work is you don't know what caused this extinction level event, what exactly happened. So it's one of those kind of things where, like, I don't know, if you explain some of the stuff, it kind of loses its mystery, and that kind of takes away, the whole soul of the story. I think what really made that book work is you don't know. You have no idea what has happened here, and I think that just kind of made it work. So sometimes when you demystify things, it doesn't really work. So I think I'm about to be more of a sequel. Let me see what happened to the boy after he went with this suspect group at the end of that book. I would love to have seen what happened there. And again, are we rebuilding humanity, or are we just going to continue to, just make our ways, just bide our time through this wasteland? I don't know. So I don't know how far advanced. It could just be the same world and much years later, maybe. I don't know. Just tell me about the boy in passing somewhere. That's fine. I just would have liked to have seen Cormac McCarthy visit this actual story again because I felt like it was so good and I just wanted to spend more time there. As terrible of a place as it was, I would have liked to just spend more time there. And I think that's going to be the case with most of these, is I just want to spend more time in that world. And with those characters I did love were in Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Now, I'm going to say, as of the recording of this video, there is no sequel to Warbreaker. I know Brandon Sanderson wants to write one, and I think he will eventually write one. I think he will write one for Elantris as well. But Warbreaker, I think, it's almost like the unicorn in fantasy because it's so rare in modern fantasy that we see a standalone fantasy book, So I think that's what kind of made it special. But almost how it felt, kind of like a bridge novel almost for the Stormlight Archive books. And you didn't have to read the Stormlight Archive books for them to make sense. But if you read Warbreaker, so many things that pop up in Stormlight Archive would have made much more sense, especially with Nightblood, and Vasher. That's just some really great stuff. So I just thought that this world was so interesting. And my one complaint of the book, if you go back and watch it, I think I talked about this for almost an hour when I reviewed it like 4 or 5 years ago, is that there was a big heel turn that really just like devastated me. It really completely fooled me to the point where I was like bargaining that I didn't want these characters to turn out to be bad guys. But it was more of, I thought it was a 5-star book, but it had like a 2-star ending because it just kind of ended. And it's, again, I think Sanderson's just become known for the Sanderlanche, and it almost feels like it is a book one to where I would want to know a little bit more what happened next kind of thing. And I feel like it is a closing of story, but it is kind of cliffhangery in the same regard. So I do think that he will write this sequel one day. It's just he's got so many irons in the fire at once that it's just hard for him to get back to everything. But yeah, I think of all of his books, there's only been a couple of standalones so far, at least the Cosmere books, and I would like to see more from the world of Warbreaker because I really did love everything from the magic system down to the characters, back to just seeing more of Avenna, which you might see more of in the Cosmere. I can neither confirm nor deny, but I did really, really enjoy that book. How about fencing, fighting, revenge, true love? I'm talking about miracles, guys. I'm talking about The Princess Bride by William Goldman. Now, with this, Buttercup's Baby, they kind of wrote like a teaser for what this was, and William Goldman said forever for the anniversary of the book he was going to release Buttercup's Baby. And it just kept getting closer and closer and closer to anniversary, and he finally just said he didn't have enough of a story to tell, and he wasn't going to force it. And I respect him for that. I respect him for not forcing it just to do it. But there is a, I should say, like a prologue for Buttercup's baby at the end of the special edition of The Princess Bride. And I think it was neat, but obviously it wasn't exactly what I wanted to see. I would have liked to have seen a true blue sequel to this. I would have liked to see what is ℕ𝕦𝕣𝕠𝕠𝕜 doing now. What are some of these characters that we grew to love outside of just Wesley and Buttercup? What are they up to? And even if you don't have an Avengers Assemble moment with all those characters, getting to see them all kind of come back together would have been a lot of fun, I think. Even if again, if you have them all teamed back up, that's fun. But if not, I just want to see what they're doing now. This is just a simple case of this is a big fantasy world that he didn't spend a ton of time developing. I think there was lots of room to go there, but it was also one of those where I just want to kind of spend time with those characters again because I do truly love them. And guys, if you haven't read the book Princess Bride and you've only seen the movie, I understand. But I think you'll see it's a little bit different. And I think that you'll see there is lots of room for growth within that world. I want to know more about ℕ𝕦𝕤𝕠𝕠𝕜. I want to know more. How about Watership Down by Richard Adams? Now, there has been a short story collection that kind of continued with this story a little bit, but I'll admit I did not read that. But for me, I would like to see an actual follow up. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I read Watership Down in 6th grade. I've forgotten way more than I remembered, but I remembered that was the first book I read where I felt like I was dealing with like a big cast and like regions and things like that. So it felt like I counted almost as my second fantasy book ever behind The Hobbit. That's kind of how I almost treat it. And I remember when I finished it, I was like, well, is there more somewhere? Can I read more? So I can't really go into what exactly I'd like to see because honestly, like I said, I need to revisit this one. I don't remember a lot of what does happen. I just remember that it's sold as a kid's book and it's actually kind of a horror show, but that's how they treated us in Gen X, guys. Everything was like, it's okay to scare the shit out of these kids once in a while, but I've actually thought about showing my kids the cartoon that I watched when I was younger, and I just remember it just scared the shit out of me and my brother. So, hey, maybe it'll be good for him. I don't know. Again, I think that this would be one that I would love to revisit and remember exactly why I wanted a sequel. But I do remember when I finished it as a younger man, I did want more, and I was upset when I found out there was not more. But again, a classic in every sense of the word, and I would love to revisit that and talk about what I would have liked to have seen in a sequel. How about some Neil Gaiman? And I mean, honestly, I would like to say Sandman, but again, when you're dealing with a long-running graphic novel series with an actual ending, I don't know if that you can say that needed a sequel, really. So just sticking with his novels here, I'd have to say I would like to spend more time in the world of Stardust because I felt like Stardust opened up some things almost in like a fairy tale kind of way that I really would have liked to have seen more of, and there was a lot of room for growth there. It was such a quick read. Honestly, that's the only full-length novel of Neil Gaiman's I've actually read. So I know a lot of people are going to jump on me for that. I've read Good Omens. That's him and Terry Pratchett. So I really kind of don't count that because I don't know who wrote what or anything like that. But I've read Stardust and I did really enjoy it. And I would like to have seen that world expanded just a bit more. I felt like the movie kind of did expand it a little bit more. But again, I felt like it was embellishing a little. I don't know how much Neil Gaiman had control with that movie. I don't know. You guys let me know. I know there's a lot of bigger Gaiman fans out there than I am. And I'll probably just get a bunch of, you need to read American Gods right now. I know, I do. But as far as this, I would have liked to spend more time in the world of Stardust. And again, these kind of sweeping epic fantasy worlds, I feel like there's always room for growth because you can visit new areas, new territories, new kingdoms, new characters. And I think that's one that definitely was just kind of like the tip of the iceberg of something if he'd have really dove all into that story. How about a couple of sci-fi ones here to end the list? I have to talk about my second favorite author of all time, and that, of course, is Michael Crichton. And I feel like the one sequel that he wrote, which was Lost World, the sequel to Jurassic Park, it was not the one that I wanted. And if you believe the stories that we've heard, he didn't really want to write a sequel to that. It's just when Steven Spielberg asks you to write a sequel, you probably go ahead and do it. I think about all his books that I would like to have seen a follow-up to, and there's several of them. I would have liked to see more Congo. I would have loved to have seen way more of Timeline because I feel like there's so much you could have played with there. But I am going to go with Sphere. And the reason I'm going with Sphere is not because it's my favorite Michael Crichton book, though it might be. I don't know. It's close with Jurassic Park. It really is. With Sphere, I feel like this is a book that Crichton fans are still arguing about the end all these years later. There's so many theories out there. I have my own, and I'll read new ones today. And I'll be like, I never thought about that, but that's quite possible. Just infinite possibilities with the way that book ended and so many question marks. And it's things that Crichton just always kind of gave a knowing smile I never really gave an answer to anybody, and I respect him for doing that. But yes, I would have liked to have seen him visit this world again and give me some of those answers. Now, it's kind of what I said earlier about the road, is if you demystify things, is it going to have the same impact? You'll never know, because I'd like to know more about this area that our protagonists do visit in Sphere and know how it got there and what it's all about, know some more of those origins. But again, demystifying isn't always a good thing. But I feel like Crichton would have done it in a way that was intelligent enough that it wouldn't have insulted us, and it would have been really, really amazing. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people, including myself, have said Event Horizon almost feels like a sequel to Sphere, the movie, because you'll see a lot of similarities between those two, and I don't think that was an accident. I think it was very clear that they had read that story. But Sphere, amazing book, guys. It really is just, in the end, it's just tell me more. I want to know more. It was just such a thrill ride, and it was over so quick. Oh, God, I would have had just such a blast with that. And the last one is, I feel like we're kind of going to get this, but it's going to be in TV format. I would like to have seen a follow-up to Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Now, I was close to saying Wayward Pines, but when I talked to Blake Crouch, he was like, if I went back to that world, don't you feel like it would have cheapened the ending? And I'm like, that's right. That's a good point. It's a good point. It's like people saying they should bring Tony Stark back in the Marvel movies, but wouldn't that kind of cheapen what happened in Endgame? Yeah, I think so. So with this, with Dark Matter, I feel like you're dealing with, infinite alternate realities, an infinite universe. And when you're playing with the multiverse, you can do anything, and I feel like you can get away with a lot of stuff. But in that book, it does kind of cliffhanger you. You don't know what's going. And it was kind of almost in that TV show format where you can visit a new world each week. So it felt like there was room to move along there. Even if you didn't want to just deal with Jason and his family, I felt like you could have really played around with the multiverse with many other characters as well, because you've just got infinite possibilities, obviously. And I think Dark Matter or Recursion would be really just great for an expanded expansion. I feel like the TV show, he is writing more, because Blake Crouch is writing on the TV show that's being made. It's really good, by the way. It's really good adaptation. And he's writing more of, Jason. Well, read the book. He's writing more of another character that you don't really see their point of view very much in the book. So I think that there is room for expansion, and we'll get that in the TV series. But I would like to see Blake put some pen to paper and continue with this story proper. And yeah, I'd like to know what happened with Jason and his family. Sure, but it doesn't have to focus on just Jason and his family. And guys, I probably have a bunch more, but those are the ones that really just popped in my head immediately of like, yes, I would definitely feel like visiting that again would be really, really worth it and not feel cheap at all, not feel like a cash grab at all. But again, some of these might actually get sequels one day, and some of them might actually get sequels not by the original author, and I will continue to refuse that they actually do exist. But guys, I would love to know some sequels that you would like to see to some books you love. Again, let's keep it to just standalones, because again, when you're dealing with series, we've gotten sequels. That's exactly what a series is. I'd like to know, what are some standalone books that you'd like to see some sequels to? Lots of classic literature came to forefront, but I tried to kind of mix it up here and keep a little bit of modern and a little bit of classic here. But I'd love to know your answers, guys. Would you like to see any of these? It's okay if you don't. I would love for you to discover these if you haven't yet. But drop in the comments, guys, and let me know some of your picks, and I will talk to you there.